Are you wondering how the bargaining power of your buyers is affecting your overall business? This video is for you. In the previous video, we continued our discussion of Porter's 5 forces. You will recall that the objective of Porter's 5 forces is to identify the risks that are relevant to your business's specific set of circumstances, and then score those risks from low to high. This presentation will look at the third of these 5 forces, namely the bargaining power of your buyers. In the videos that follow, we will consider each of the remaining forces one by one. Please be sure to watch them all in order to guarantee an overall understanding of Porter's 5 forces and how they affect your competitive landscape. With that, let's dive into the presentation. Previously, in video number 1, we were introduced to an overall strategic management framework, and more specifically, the first step in that framework, namely developing the strategy. Then, in video number 2, we focused in on the second part of that first step, namely strategic analysis. In video number 2, we identified 5 different techniques that would form part of our strategic analysis toolkit. This presentation will focus on the 4th technique, namely Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces comprise 1. Rivalry among existing competitors, 2. The threat of new entrants, 3. The bargaining power of buyers, 4. The bargaining power of suppliers, and 5. The threat of substitute products or services. In this presentation, we will look specifically at the third of these 5 forces, namely bargaining power of buyers. The bargaining power of buyers can be considered from 2 separate perspectives, namely buyer negotiating power and buyer price sensitivity. The first point to consider within buyer negotiating power is buyer concentration, that is the number of buyers. Are there few buyers? Also, high fixed costs and low marginal costs amplify the pressure on rivals to keep capacity filled through discounting. For example, Lightweight Finance will generate revenue through advertisements placed on content. There are thousands of potential advertisers advertising on the various distribution platforms. Lightweight Finance will, however, need to consider the consequences if it produces inappropriate content that impacts the reputations of its consumers or advertisers. The risk is low. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is buyer concentration, that is the volumes purchased. Does each buyer purchase in volumes that are large relative to the size of a single vendor? Large volume buyers are particularly powerful in industries with high fixed costs. High fixed costs and low marginal costs amplify the pressure on rivals to keep capacity filled through discounting. For example, Lightweight Finance is not paid based on buyer volumes, but instead based on advertising revenues, which is based on click-through rates and view time. It is up to Lightweight Finance how much high-quality content they produce. The risk is low. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is standardized products. Are the industry's products standardized or undifferentiated? If buyers believe they can always find an equivalent product, they tend to play one vendor against the other. For example, at Lightweight Finance, our content is specific and targeted at SMEs. This is unique and differentiated from other content available via online distribution channels and social media. In addition, we will strive to produce high-quality content in terms of substance. This risk is relatively low. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is buyer switching costs. If buyers face few switching costs in changing vendors, they can be easily persuaded to change. For example, in relation to Lightweight Finance, there is nothing stopping consumers from switching from our content to alternatives at zero cost. We will need to produce high-quality content in order to remain competitive. The risk is high. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is the buyer's ability to integrate backwards. Buyers can threaten to integrate backwards and produce the industry's product themselves if vendors are too profitable. For example, in relation to Lightweight Finance, consumers of content, typically SME owners and managers, are unlikely to produce our content themselves, since they are not paying for it. This risk is low. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is the intermediate customer's ability to influence downstream customers. Intermediate customers, in other words customers who purchase the product but are not the end user, can gain significant bargaining power when they can influence the purchasing decisions of customers downstream. For example, Lightweight Finance provides content for free to consumers, but gets paid by advertisers. Lightweight Finance will, however, need to consider the consequences if it produces inappropriate content that impacts the reputations of its consumers or advertisers. This is a medium-level risk. The next point to consider within buyer negotiating power is substitute products. If buyers have substitute products available, their bargaining power will be increased. For example, in relation to Lightweight Finance, there will be substitute products available. Lightweight Finance will need to produce superior quality content. This is a medium-level risk. Moving on to buyer price sensitivity, the first point to consider is whether the product represents a significant portion of the buyer's cost structure. In this case, buyers would be encouraged to shop around and bargain hard. When the product is a small fraction of the buyer's cost structure, they will usually be less price sensitive. For example, Lightweight Finance's content will be made available for free, so there is little price-based incentive to shop around. This risk is low. Next, within buyer price sensitivity, we need to consider whether the buyer group earns low profits and is under pressure to reduce its purchasing costs. Buyers will be price sensitive if they 1. Earn low profits, 2. Are cash strapped, or 3. Are under pressure to reduce their purchasing costs. Buyers will be less price sensitive if they are cash rich. For example, Lightweight Finance's content will be made available for free, so there is little cost-based incentive to reduce costs. The risk is low. Next, within buyer price sensitivity, we need to consider the importance of quality. Where quality is very much affected by the industry's product, buyers are generally less price sensitive. For example, motor car manufacturers will pay for high quality safety features such as brakes or airbags. For example, Lightweight Finance will be producing content for free. Therefore, quality is a very strong driving factor for consumers. If quality is inferior, consumers will look elsewhere. This risk is very high. Next, within buyer price sensitivity, we need to consider the product impact on buyers' other costs. If the product has little effect on the buyer's other costs, they will be price sensitive. In contrast, if the product can pay for itself many times over by improving financial performance, buyers are less price sensitive and more focused on quality. For example, application of Lightweight Finance's principles will allow SME owners and managers to run more effective organizations. This in turn should help reduce costs and increase revenues over time. In addition, content is provided for free, so price sensitivity would not be an issue. The risk is low. After considering all these factors in relation to the bargaining power of customers, we should consider how we will fight back. For example, Lightweight Finance will need to produce the highest quality content in order to deter switching. Lightweight Finance will need to incorporate SME targeted content into their offering. Lightweight Finance will need to form a community of its consumers and potentially expand services. For example, SME-specific financial analysis and consulting services. And with that, we can prepare a scorecard for factors impacting bargaining power of customers, our third Porter force. Overall, in the case of Lightweight Finance, our scorecard has an average risk level of low to medium. This is consistent with our expectations, since there is no risk related to price sensitivity, given that the content is made available for free. Our biggest risks are more related to the quality and substance of our content, and the ease with which our consumers can switch. And so, we have finalized our third of Porter's 5 forces. However, we will need to consider all the forces, as they interact with each other and are applied to our organization simultaneously. In this video, we considered the third of Porter's 5 forces, namely the bargaining power of buyers. This force identified numerous factors to consider in relation to both buyer negotiating power and buyer price sensitivity. And so, we continue to add to our detailed analysis of competition as part of our overall strategic analysis. Remember, you should be methodically documenting your findings. They will all form part of your final strategic plan. In the next video, we will move on to Porter's 4th force, namely the bargaining power of suppliers. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell. It helps us grow the channel and bring more content to small and medium business owners and managers. Also, be sure to check the description below for any related product affiliate links. And finally, please comment on the video or click on our community tab to further interactions and updates.